But I actually have an issue with you I need to discuss.
Oh, dang.
Yeah, we're taking a hard left. Last year, March Madness, you filled out a bracket.
Disrespectful bracket to you, I know.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to A Touch More. We have a very special guest today. Second Gentleman Doug Emhoff is joining us on the show. We're going to share some of our thoughts about the election, which is, slowly approaching. The actual election day, from what my memory is the longest day of my life.
Yeah.
So looking forward to that, I think. Not. And it is our favorite time of the year here to Touch More. The Megan and Sue Halloween picks are trickling in. We're going to show you some of our favorites later in the episode. We've also got a new Are You a Megan or Are You a Sue? This one I feel like is going to say a lot about people.
The Are You Megan, Are You Sue?
Yeah.
No, it's going to.
Yeah,
so there's a line in the sand.
There is a line in the sand.
There's a line in the sand here, people.
For sure. But before we get to all of that, of course, we got to check in. Support for A Touch More comes from L'Oreal Paris. Each year, the L'Oreal Paris Women of Worth program chooses 10 brilliant nonprofit leaders to be the Women of Worth honorees. Today, we'll hear directly from a program alum and learn a bit about some of the incredible women from the 2024 honoree cohort. So stick around.
Sue, a lot of axes fallen in the WNBA. We have 6 head coaches that have been fired, 2 GMs that are not continuing in their current position. The Fever, the Wings, Chicago Sky, the LA Sparks, Atlanta Dream, Washington Mystics, all without a head coach. Tell us what you think. Are the expectations changing? Is it just happened that they all getting fired at the same time? Like, what's happening? That's a lot. That's half the league.
Yeah, it is a lot. So I just read something or came across something where Noelle Quinn with the Storm is like the second longest tenured coach with 4 years.
Yeah.
It's crazy. I don't know exactly what's happening. I think for each team, the reasons are different. So it's not like there's some like epidemic hitting the WNBA. No. But you bring up expectations. I do think that it's different now. There's a lot more eyeballs, which means a lot more critique, which means a lot more pressure.
More pressure, yeah, for everybody.
So I think a lot of franchises are just seemingly reevaluating. I don't really have like a specific take on, like I said, any of the firings or any of the situations where people moved on. I personally think the WNBA coaching position is extremely attractive. I've thought it was attractive for a really long time. I think when you compare it to college, there's no recruiting. It's a shorter season. I personally think coaching adults is more, for me personally, more attractive. Not that coaching college kids it's not about like better or worse. It's just maybe what suits someone.
You're not throwing your name in any of these hats, are you?
Am I? Am I allowed?
No, you're not.
Do you hear that, everyone?
Not allowed.
When I say no, it's because I've been banned.
Listen, there is a price, as there is for most things, but it's very, very high for us to become a coaching family. Oh my God.
As I was saying, I feel like a WNBA job is really attractive. Already mentioned the lack of recruiting, which I know for college coaches is really just hard.
Yeah.
It's just really difficult. It's a lot of time away. You got to talk on the phone constantly. Try to speak a 17-year-old's language, which I'm sure has its own challenges.
Gosh. I mean, you spend the majority of your time trying to make 17-year-olds think you're cool. It's like, what a nightmare. They don't think you're cool.
Yeah. I do see how college coaching, and we're totally on a different topic now, but I do see how it'd be I'll keep using the word attractive, to get someone when they're younger and help build a foundation.
Yeah, rewarding.
So that'd be the only thing, I think. But anyways, I've thought the WNBA job was a great job, and now the money makes it a great job.
Money's
so
up.
Now I wouldn't be surprised, all that to say, I wouldn't be surprised if these WNBA jobs get filled, maybe with names we haven't seen in the women's game or we haven't seen in the WNBA. I also think a lot of the coaches that were let go are very good coaches. Sometimes it's just timing or fit. These were very good coaches. We'll use like Kurt Miller. He's been coach of the year in the WNBA.
Right.
So I'm sure if he wants to continue,
There'll
he
probably
can.
be a little bit of a carousel happening with some of these teams. Maybe
Likely.
coaches,
That happens in every sport.
Totally.
There's an expertise that's required.
Oh, absolutely.
So these coaches certainly have that. You talk about the GMs that have either been let go or moved on from. Again, sometimes it's just fit. I do think that when we signed the CBA back in 2019, 2020, something that we all knew was going to happen is the pressure was going to fall a little bit on these GMs because now the money and the way it was getting distributed,
not so, like, plug and play.
Yeah, it wasn't so simple.
Yeah.
For a really long time, our salary cap's a hard salary cap. The max salary wasn't very high. So at some point, you couldn't pay the top players anymore or any more money. And so it just became very simple to like fill out your roster. And now you have to be really dynamic and you have to be creative. And, they've allowed you to trade for future picks as one example that's different. So it's no surprise. It's something we talked about all the way back then, like 4 or 5 years ago, that GMs were going to have to, for lack of a better, earn their salary.
Yeah.
So it's all about finding the right time. Do you have any thoughts on what's happening?
Well, I have one more question. What did you think of Kirstie Sides tweeting, "Leave it better than you found it" with the deuces?
I thought it was funny.
That was funny.
I laughed. I had a
That's
little
funny
LOL.
as hell.
Yeah.
I mean,
She said,
she did.
yeah. She stated fact and, threw up the deuces, and that was that.
She said, "I'm out of
No
here."
press conference.
Yeah, I'm outta
no
here.
big thank you to everyone at the Freebird organization. Just
No, I
see
think
ya.
that's a little bit to the point about pressure that you were talking about. Obviously, you have superstar, Caitlin Clark, and I think it makes everybody's job easier and harder at the same time. You obviously have a superstar to build around, and they had a great year, especially the second half of the year. But then it's like, are they championship ready right now? And is all the pieces right? But and
a lot of pressure, for sure.
yeah, she definitely left it better than she found it, and then she's deuces.
Yeah. I mean, I forget.
Yeah, it
the
was
record
funny.
wouldn't necessarily, it was a tough record, but
Yeah,
but they definitely figured it out
found a little flow
towards the end.
My thoughts. I mean, I see this. I think in the NWSL in various different ways. I think just in general, as the money goes up, whether it's salary caps, investment, sponsorship money, all of it, the business around the W and the NWSL and these leagues is growing immensely. And with it, it's like more money, more problems. I mean, with that comes greater expectations, comes, a desire to win right away, comes, a myriad of different things. And so whether that's like maybe having a quicker trigger to fire a coach or to, mid-season or to do it right after. We've seen a couple of the GMs not be asked back. So it kind of all makes sense. I mean, I think that the business around the W and the NWSL is changing so rapidly. Everybody is kind of learning in real time. And even when you think about like the CBA, almost as soon as they're done, they're like obsolete and they need to be done again. We saw the W just opt out. Obviously, the NWSL early in the year, both sides came to the table and revamped it completely. And I think we're going to see a lot more of that, honestly, in the next probably 5 years as the business stabilizes. There's an unbelievable amount of money that is already coming in, and that's only going up. Mm-hmm. And that's going to change things. And I think it's growing rapidly. And in order to capture all the upside and try to figure out the structure and the infrastructure of everything, it's going to take a lot of moving around. Like what was okay last year is like totally obsolete this year and it's going to be totally obsolete next year. So it's just like things are changing very quickly.
Does the NWSL have a similar, I don't want to call it an issue because I don't think it's an issue, but just a similar scenario where it's a lot of recycling, where coaches were at one team, then they go to the next team, and so on and so forth? Or are you able to pull in coaches from different places?
No, I think that is true. I mean, similar with players. It's like, first of all, elite talent is elite talent. On the field, in the coach, in the front office, all of it. You see, in every league, it's like all the male leagues, the coach gets fired, is immediately hired by another team. Yeah. Like the guy from the Jets is now coaching with the Packers. Elite talent is hard to come by. Mm-hmm. So I think in the NWSL, what you're seeing is like, okay, are we going foreign? the guy from Barcelona, who's now with Washington Spirit. Like maybe that's how you go out of the talent pool. But I think in a lot of ways, it's like who's good. And maybe similar to players, I don't think every team fits every coach. I don't think every environment fits every coach. I don't think every environment fits every player. So it might be, you know, for some of these W coaches, and I've certainly seen the NWSL that like it might just not be the right fit at the right time or whatever.
For sure.
And talent is talent. You mentioned Kurt Miller. Like he's obviously a very good coach. He's won Coach of the Year, been to the finals. I'm sure we'll see him somewhere else and some of these other coaches. So I think that's part of it. I also think that there is a growing pool of talent with, you know, whether it's WNBA players coaching in college or coaching in the G League or coaching in the NBA. And so
I have a take on that.
Talent pool is starting to grow. I think the same in the NWSL as we're going to get to that, as there's more opportunity happening, like the talent pool will grow just as the player talent pool is growing.
So I think what I would add to that is, and this is something that I stumbled upon when I first worked with Denver, because I was getting the question a lot about players becoming coaches. And the truth was, even then, but especially now, the WNBA hadn't been around long enough where players could have these really long careers, right? So 13, 14, 15 plus, obviously some of us 20 plus. What a joke. Sometimes I'm like, did that actually happen? So these players that played for a really long time that then get to finish and go into coaching. Becky Hammon is obviously the best example, one of many, but you know, the one we talk about often, where they're now bringing this wealth of experience. So if you look at Becky, someone that obviously played in college, played in the WNBA, played overseas, played on national teams, played for who knows how many coaches, then you know, cut her teeth in with the Spurs and learned a lot about the professional game and took it to the WNBA. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see more former players starting to get into coaching, assuming that's what they want to do. Now that the money is right, that plays such a huge role, because for a while, maybe as a former player, you wouldn't want to go do that right away because maybe it just wasn't worth it from a financial standpoint. So I just wouldn't be surprised. And the more talent that we have, the better off the league is going to be. Because I think the WNBA, 12 teams, soon to be more, but 12 teams for a long time, is primed for talented coaching. When you see a coach come in with something new, it just automatically does well. JJ Redick with the Lakers. JJ's come in with like a new vibe, a new, you know, system, a new style. Some of the stuff he's running, I want to say he actually got from Danny Hurley. So, you know, it's like bringing in something new. Yeah. But you have to go out into the world and almost steal from other people to do that. And so I'm excited to see if that happens in the WNBA.
No, to your point about former players and it finally getting time where like the players, the money is right for players to go back and coach, and the, you know, the careers of players have been long enough and all that. Bev Yanez is head coach of Racing Louisville. Carmelina Moscato is her assistant coach. I think you're starting to see a lot of that. I see a lot more former players, if not, you know, head coaching, like first, what do you guys call it? First bench? In the first or second assistant.
It's front bench or
front
back
bench. Yeah, front bench.
We don't have that many in the WNBA. There's just a front, really.
Yeah, but
player development's in the back.
like getting that experience, and obviously you come and listen. Coaching as a former player is not for everyone. I
know. Like here we are saying.
I think I'd be terrible. You would be great. I'd be terrible.
It's a lot harder than people realize.
I think
for sure.
the business around it and the opportunity is making it very attractive for former players to go into that. And then obviously they have the expertise and they know the game so well. You know, obviously Noe in Seattle, perfect example of being a former player and you know, spending a lot of her time as an assistant there and then eventually becoming head coach. One other thing, you've had experience with this. Both, basically, the two biggest rookies of the year, Angel Reese and Caitlin Clark, having their head coaches fired in the first year.
That happened to me. So
and you have
2002,
a full circle of it all.
Yeah, in 2002, my rookie year, not that different from both Angel and Caitlin, a little more similar to Caitlin because we made the playoffs. So we were a team that had young talent, a lot of, you know, expectation in a sense because of myself and Lauren, back-to-back #1 picks, but also shrug, who knows how we're going to do. Yeah, we're right. The season was totally up and down. And I vividly remember there was a moment with about like 9 games left, maybe 10, where it was like, we have to win. I think it was like 7 out of 9. And we were like, screw it, let's do it. And we actually did. So I wrote this down to get it right. We won 6 out of 7. So with our next 7 games, we won 6 of them, most of them on the road. And then I remember we needed to win like one of the last 2, and we were able to do that. Made the playoffs, lost in the first round to the eventual champion, the LA Sparks. And a month, maybe less later, I get a call saying our coach has resigned. What's interesting about that moment is that coach was Lynn Dunn, who's now with Indiana Fever. So just like a fun little fact
She
there.
finally exacted her revenge. No, I'm kidding.
No, it was, what I remember about it. So Lynn didn't get fired. She technically resigned. But I remember people thinking, like wondering, like, why would she do that? People were wondering, like, what actually happened? Why did this happen? Why wouldn't Lynn want to continue? Did the franchise make her do it? There was all these question marks. We eventually ended up hiring Ann Donovan, and we won 2 years later. So, good luck to Indiana. No, I'm joking. No, totally kidding. I'm totally kidding.
Good luck to you.
So you got 2 years. No.
Yeah.
No, totally joking.
No, it's a lot.
I guess the only thing I'm going to add, all this means to answer your initial question, all this means for Caitlin and Angel, it's just a part of their story. The same way that I can sit here and be like, so I played for Lynn Dunn. She resigned after the first year. We moved on to Ann, and then moved on to Brian, and then moved on to this, and moved on to that, and so on and so forth. It becomes just a part of your professional career story.
Yeah.
That's really all it is. And to be honest, there's very few exceptions where it's like Greg Popovich is literally the only one I could think of where a player got to play for the same coach their entire career. It's very rare. And I personally think playing for different coaches is how you develop.
I think it's great.
It's how you learn different systems, learn different styles, see what works. Maybe how you become a good head coach yourself one day, as we were just mentioning. But yeah, I think for those 2 specifically, it's a blip. It really is.
Okay.
It's a blip.
Yeah. I also think it teaches you a very valuable lesson. I think the younger you are when you can learn this, the better. You don't control much.
No,
you can control yourself and the way that you show up and, your body and how hard you work and all of the things. Like, you just you don't always get to choose what team, what city, what coach, what players, whatever.
No.
And I think so often, it's easy. I've been there for sure. It's been like, well, if this was different and this, and then, well, it's not.
I know.
It's not different. And all you can do is show up. And the really successful players are successful everywhere.
They figure it
out. No
out.
matter who's on their team, no matter what the situation is, your team's good, your team's bad, your coach is good, your coach is bad, you like them, you don't like them, whatever it is.
Yeah, it's a really good point. You do realize quickly so much is out of your control when it comes to that.
Almost everything. Literally almost everything.
Yeah, and luck.
Yeah.
There's a little bit of luck. We were just talking about this.
Yeah.
It's like national team coaches. Sometimes you get one that suits you perfect.
Yeah.
And so for those 4 years, or maybe that one Olympic experience, or for you, World Cup.
Yeah.
Well, I guess for us too, World Cup. Then great. Or it doesn't fit.
Or it doesn't.
And that's your Olympic experience. And that's your national team experience.
Yeah.
I've seen everything you could imagine in that regard, where things have fit, where things have not. And it's just like, well, it's a roll of the dice. And that's what happened.
Yeah.
So yeah, it'll be interesting to see where all these coaches land and who gets hired where. The expansion draft is in December, so I'm assuming we're going to start seeing some hirings pretty soon. But yeah, today's only October 28th?
Yep.
So I doubt there'll be any more firings. I mean, oh my God, imagine there are more firings. I can't imagine it. But we'll definitely be paying attention to that.
Watch this space. It's all unfolding. I think just in general, it's going to be a great topic for, like I said before, the next 5 years. It's going to be fascinating to just see in real time how these businesses grow around women's sports. I'm fascinated by it.
I have one idea for a coach, but I'm not telling anybody.
Oh my gosh, you're going to just leave our listeners on the hook like that?
Maybe I'll share it, but not today.
Wow. Are you going to tell me?
Maybe later.
You trust me, right?
Kind of. You get up here and you blurt.
I sure do.
You just let it roll off your tongue.
Okay, when we come back, a very special interview with the Second Gentleman of the United States, Doug Emhoff.
Support for A Touch More comes from L'Oreal Paris, who are proudly presenting their 2024 Women of Worth honorees. One of these women is Sherry Mathis, president of the Mammogram Poster Girls. Her organization raises money and awareness for women of limited means to benefit from early screening for breast cancer. A 2-time breast cancer survivor herself, Sherry is on a mission to offset the cost of mammograms for women who often wouldn't qualify. She also wants to raise awareness on the importance of early breast cancer screenings. We're also honoring Dr. Tanya Stafford. Dr. Stafford is the founder and executive director of It's Going to Be Okay, a nonprofit supporting victims of human trafficking. It's Going to Be Okay provides trauma-informed services to victims and their children, plus awareness and prevention trainings for everyone from the FBI to airline and hotel staff. These are just 2 of the many incredible women honored this year, 2 powerful changemakers in their unique communities. So thank you, L'Oreal Paris, for lifting them up and letting us celebrate them. Learn more about this year's recipients at womenofworth.com. We are thrilled to welcome you, Second Gentleman Doug Emhoff, to our show, A Touch More. This is a pretty big day for us because you are actually our very first gentleman to join us on the show.
Ever.
So we're very
Really?
excited. We're honored to have you. Welcome to the show.
It's good to see you both. I think the last time I saw you was at the Olympics.
Yes.
Yeah, in Paris.
I talked to Megan. I think, Sue, I saw you from across the court. You were at the basketball game. So I saw you, but I don't think we got to chat.
Yeah,
me
no,
and the
I missed the
SG
big
were
day.
hanging out in the Louvre together.
I know, I missed that. I was
side of
very
it.
sad.
I know. You're busy.
But yeah, you actually already talked about our partnership, which is something we can relate to with you. Obviously, you have experience of working with your partner as well. But in your case, your partnership will make history if Kamala Harris is elected president, as you'll become the first gentleman. We've watched a lot of interviews, and it seems like people are super fascinated by the concept of a man supporting his spouse. So how do you think your role could impact gender norms in this country?
Well, thanks for having me as the first gentleman to be on your show. Hopefully the first gentleman of the United States. I get asked this all the time. And for me, at first, I was always a little taken aback by the question because, if you love somebody and they're your partner, you should support them, full stop. And that's how I've always approached my life. And so for me, it just comes very naturally. And it's an equal partnership. She supports me just the same way I support her. So we're there for each other. And which also hopefully is the way good partnerships are. And look, I love my career. I had a nice talk with Megan about her new career in media and entertainment and branding. So I still love to talk about, my former life as a media, sports and entertainment lawyer. But to take a step back from something I love to support someone who was going to be Vice President of the United States is a no-brainer. But I've said this a little bit too. At first, it was a little disconcerting. I was struggling a little bit at first. Okay, now what do I do? And it was really Kamala that pushed me into, well, look, you're the first guy ever to be in this role. You should talk about gender equity issues, things like equal pay in sports, which we've all talked about, training. And, when the Dobbs decision hit, I was out front and center trying to talk to men about the importance of turning that back. I mean, the Dobbs decision has had such a horrible impact on everyone, women, but families too. So it was really, I jumped into it. It was very substantive, and it's taken me all over the world. I mean, I got to go to New Zealand representing the country at the Women's World Cup. I got to go to Paris and to see the women win the soccer medal and to see the women win. So it's been pretty incredible. And I've gotten to meet leaders in women's sports all over the country as well. And I've gotten to really know folks and hear from them directly about, really specific issues like training, facilities, branding, media rights. And with my background, I'm able to really talk about it and be a partner in that. So yes, it was tough to step away from my career, but this has been, the right thing to do to support my wife, but also to dive into it substantively and try to, make whatever difference I can.
Yeah, you touched on it a little bit in terms of reproductive freedom. That's obviously an issue where, we care a lot about just personally as a woman, but also in women's sports, just understanding, what that right means and how impactful it is for so many female athletes. You obviously are a champion of women's rights and the women's rights to reproductive freedom. What would you say is the role of men in advocating for reproductive rights? And maybe just like a little bit of advice. I think you've done a great job in stepping out and being like, this is what it means to me. So maybe just advice for men about how to speak about it. I know so many men, support women's rights and maybe just haven't really found a footing in how to actually talk about it and support women and talk about it publicly.
Yeah, so I'll just give my experience. So when the Dobbs decision came out, which of course everyone should know, overturned Roe v. Wade. And Roe v. Wade was a Supreme Court decision based on a right of privacy this right was established 60 years ago by the Supreme Court. So there's been a string of rulings, including Roe v. Wade, reproductive freedom, but also gay marriage, also, loving who you want to love. And it's based on freedom. And so this is the way I talk about it to men is like, this is actually about freedom, because if you extrapolate out the logic of the Dobbs decision, which is, let's take a look at all these rights based on this Griswold right of privacy, which includes so many other fundamental rights which affect all of us, men included. You should care based on that. Moreover, you've seen men out there who are partners with or married to women who have almost died. And we've seen those stories where this couple who, trying to have a baby, and there's a complication in the pregnancy, and the woman goes into, the doctors won't treat because of the Dobbs decision because they're afraid of liability and potential criminal liability, which is horrific. And you've seen the stories of women almost dying, and you've heard the stories of their husbands or partners talking about it. And women have died. So this is an issue for families. It's not just an issue about women. It's also an issue about family planning. So our son Cole, is married to Greenlee. Greenlee's from Texas. And, in the back of their mind, they're thinking maybe one day they want to go to Austin. Austin is a great place, but it doesn't have its own set of reproductive rules, as some people think. It doesn't. It's still subject to a 6-week ban with no exceptions and criminalization for doctors. So that's going to impact their lives. They're not going to move there because they want to start a family. And God forbid something happens, you can't get the medical treatment. And then doctors are leaving these communities with these bans. So now all of a sudden, you can't get medical care, like routine pap smears and things like that. So all of a sudden, maternal mortality is rising in these states. Cancer rates are rising because you don't have the medical treatment. So I'm just talking about facts. Like, this is why when you talk to men like this, and it's about also supporting women should not be treated as less than. They should not have less rights than men. It's just a basic fairness. And so you can just, and again, I don't want to preach to anyone. I don't want to be a scold, but this is how I feel. And this is how I talk about it. I know when this Dobbs decision came out, the first person I heard from was Ella, who is 25 now. And she was literally, I had the text written out somewhere, which is like, you need to fight. I am so angry. And it's so motivating for the Ella Emhoffs of the world. She's now 25. This is like her issue, and so many millions of other young people, men included, who it's about freedom. So that's how I talk about it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you mentioned Ella. We're in the Ella fan club. You probably are the president of the Ella fan club, but we're also in it. Offline, I'm going to need her stylist and her tattoo artist, but we'll do that later. And you mentioned your other kids, and it has been just really cool to see your whole family sort of step into being a different kind of family than this country has ever really seen in leadership. And I think a lot of people have seen themselves in you, but how proud are you? And like, what's your proudest moment watching Ella sort of step into this moment as a young person, as a woman, as someone kind of stepping into it for the first time?
Yeah, I've always been, the cliche, I've always been proud of her. I'm proud dad, and to see her, grow up. And she played a lot of sports. She was a really great athlete, and I was like her mean dad coach, and I would always just say, because I played a lot of sports, I'm like, soft hands, but be aggressive. She's like, you're confusing me.
What does it
So
mean?
she named her company Soft Hands.
Oh, that's why?
I
So
didn't
her
know
knitting
that.
company is called Soft
love
Hands in
that.
honor of dad.
that's
but that was
amazing.
almost like an inside joke because I just kept saying soft hands, but be aggressive, and it was just too much. But
I mean, you're kind of right, though.
Yeah.
but
That's right. You gotta
soft
have
hands
both,
would be
yeah.
aggressive, and but she's so good at so many things, and then her passion was to be a fine artist, and she got into Parsons and graduated from Parsons, which is a very prestigious art school, one of the best in the world, and that to me, and Kamala and Kirsten, we were so proud to watch her live out that dream, and then to see her, from the first inauguration with her jacket and all the things that she has done to put herself out there as her true authentic self, and is such a unique individual. That's what we're so proud of, and she's keeping it together. But she's still my my little girl. So when I see her, and I just saw her in New York, and she announced me at the Brooklyn Bowl. We did a big rally for Kamala, and she's so good up there, and so. But Cole too. Like I don't want to.
Yeah, we love you too,
Detract from
Cole.
Cole.
We love you too,
Cole, my fantasy football partner, and married also a great, amazing young man. He's married in the entertainment business, calm and cool. But Cole was the one who directed that video before I gave my DNC speech. So he's so creative too. That was Cole who did that. So they're
Very
both super
cool.
talented, super creative. And, this is a pretty intense situation to have Kamala all of a sudden 13 and a half weeks ago jump in and head the ticket. And it's like all of us being shot out of a cannon. And for them to still be keeping it together and being so great, as we crisscross the country, and we're not there as much as we can be, but we're making an effort, and they're being understanding. We're just so proud of them. And they popped in and out of the campaign trail here and there. So it's been great.
Yeah, it's great.
Well, I was able to actually sit next to Ella for a Liberty game this past month. I think it was during the playoffs.
I saw that.
Yeah,
I still have to follow her online. I was like, I saw that.
yeah, she was rocking the New York Liberty off-white. What was it? The Letterman
Yeah, the
jacket.
Letterman jacket.
So the style is always on point.
I got to go see Billie Eilish with her at the Garden. I think it was a week ago.
Yeah, it was about a week
and
ago,
she
yeah.
was- It's just so much fun. But so many people know her, and they're like,
Yeah.
"Oh my God!" I'm thinking, "Oh, do you want a selfie with me?" It's like, "No, we want one with Ella." I'm like,
Yeah.
"Okay."
It's always like, can you take the picture?
Yeah, I'm trying to
That
photo.
happens to us too.
That
I'm like
happens to us a
photo
lot.
bombing my daughter. Hey, look at me. But-
Second gentleman here.
By the way, Megan, did you see the me photo bombing the team, the Olympic team?
It's so
We
good.
sure did.
So good.
That was
Big-
pretty funny.
SG in the back.
But we do appreciate. So yeah, I saw Ella at the Liberty game, which was amazing. And we also know you're a huge sports fan. As you mentioned, you were at the World Cup. You're at the Olympics. You pop into Washington Spirit games. So actually, before I go, do you have like a favorite moment of the Olympics?
So I got to see like the gold medal, winning soccer and basketball, and to meet the team after. I mean, Megan was there. That was a pretty
So good.
incredible moment because I know some of the players from when I went to the World Cup, and I've kind of been involved with the team, and it was emotional to see that because I was at the farewell match in Washington before they went to Paris, so I got to say hi and meet the coach and everyone, and it was so surreal to actually be on the field because we kind of tiptoed out. We were originally in the tunnel waiting for the team to come in, and we all just I don't think we asked anyone. We just started
No one
tipping
stopped you.
out onto the field, and all of a sudden we're there hanging out with the players after they won. So that was, but I know it didn't work, but New Zealand was also very special to be out there representing the country again there. So, the other side of the world and getting to see you all there and being there was still an incredible moment for me as well. So.
But the Olympics was better,
highs and
even for
lows.
me. I'm like, the
No, I
Olympics
know,
was
but
better.
it's
even
like
for
the
me.
highs and lows.
Yeah.
But to be able to
Yeah.
see you there, and that's sports, right?
That's exactly.
sports,
That's
yeah.
exactly sports.
Actually, I'm curious, how do you see the continued investment and growth around women's sports impacting the country?
Well, we're seeing it, and just in a couple of years, you've seen this geometric growth of both the WNBA, the NWSL, and just the college game. You're seeing the media rights deals. You're seeing the NILs. You're just seeing it. And what I was talking to the team about before was you're also seeing it cross over into mainstream sports reporting. So now all of a sudden, it's kind of a natural thing to see the end of the WNBA with the Liberty winning the title. Everyone's talking about that. And then all of a sudden, the NBA starts right after that. So it's almost like sports fans are seeing this continuum now of WNBA right into NBA. And I think with soccer, with the rise of MLS, the Women's League, but also the interest in World Cup and EPL and the Fan Fest, it's just like everyone is kind of interested in soccer here, writ large, which also lifts up the women's game. You look at some of the owners too coming into the league. I know Bob Iger and Willow Bay just bought into the Angel FC in LA. You've got the Tish. You got some serious ownership in the women's league, which is great for the entire league, and it's more visible now when you're flipping around trying to watch something. And I think that the women's soccer and NBA are kind of growing together in lockstep, which is great for both leagues. So it's not where it should be. It's still a big disparity, but you're starting to see improvement. And that's going to improve some of the things we've talked about, the training, the facilities, the travel, the branding rights, and spreading the wealth around throughout the players, not just a few.
Right. I've actually heard you speak about how a lot of the issues, a lot of the things against women who play sports, it's really the same issues that all women are facing. And I love how you make that connection, because that's something we talk about that show, to take issue with that. But I actually have an issue with you I need to discuss. It's pretty serious.
Oh, dang.
Yeah. We're taking a hard left. Last year, March Madness, you filled out a bracket.
Disrespectful bracket to you, I know.
You picked the USC Trojans over my UConn Huskies. We all know what happened, so I just wanted to put that in the air. And I actually wanted to get your take on the USC team this year. They've got Juju coming back. How do you think they're going to be?
I think she's amazing. Look, I'm such a homer for USC. It's bad.
She's a homer. She's a dictator when it comes to
I know
UConn.
when I fill out those brackets, I always put my thumb on USC, Southern California, not the one that won.
Not the other
South
one, yeah.
Carolina, who was amazing too. But they look good, and I love how she's doing commercials, and she's really branding herself and taking advantage of those opportunities. And I think it's going to set an example for others to follow. So, and it'll help recruiting. It's going to help the team. So I'm hopeful, but after seeing what happened to my men's football team as they started in the Big Ten, it's been a rude a welcome to the Big Ten for my Trojans on the football side. So hopefully on the basketball side, it's going to be a little more kind.
Saying Big Ten and USC Trojans
doesn't make sense.
It's like
So surreal. It's like
doesn't
playing
roll off the
Minnesota,
tongue.
Michigan, and and Penn State, and they're losing these games, and it's making me mad. But it's still kind of fun. But anyway, I'm a total USC homer, so that's why I made that pick. But it was exciting. We watched a lot of it, and Kamala did too. And this was, I think, part of our earlier conversation on how women's sports has gotten, it's into mainstream sports where we're all kind of watching it all. And it was fun watching it with Kamala because she got really into it too. So, and we both had
maybe I can convert
brackets, and we
her.
were looking
Maybe
at
I
our
can convert
brackets.
her.
Yeah.
We were looking at our brackets during the games. It was fun.
Yeah, hopefully I can bring her over to. I don't think it's the dark side, but a lot of people don't love the UConn Huskies. So
Well, I got to meet them a couple of times at the White House on the men's side. So definitely they won. So
yeah. They did all right. Yeah.
You guys are going
No, we
to
love our
have to
men's
make
team,
a
too.
little friendly wager.
Watched
know.
that
Cheers
game. I
tournament.
watched. I was at the Final Four. I think it was a final game. It was against Purdue.
Yeah.
Was that
the
the
team.
final- yeah,
Yeah.
I actually got to see that. That was
that was
impressive
great.
to see.
Danny Hurley
Coach
has
Hurley, he's intense.
Yeah,
He's
an
intense.
amazing thing
Close.
going.
I know. I'm
though.
like, would I like him as a coach or would like?
oh, I would love him.
I feel like I would
like
too.
getting
I'd
yelled
probably
at.
butt heads, but
Well,
Yeah.
I think there was some talk he was going to go to the Lakers, which is my team,
Yeah.
and then he obviously stayed. But we got JJ Redick. It looks
Okay,
good
Lakers
so
looking
far.
good. Game
Yeah,
one.
one game.
Not
Game
so
one.
bad.
Ron and
We'll take
Bronny,
it. We'll take
highest
it.
scoring duo of all time.
Yeah.
Father-son
Okay.
duo.
I know, literally, literally. I know. Poor guy. He got 3 minutes. I'm not sure he'll get more this year, but we'll
You know
see.
what?
It was an
still
amazing
awesome
moment.
I was so, it was emotional. It was awesome. And they won. They won their
Yeah.
first game.
It was
It
special.
really was. It really was so cool. LeBron just like actually turned into a normal dad, and you could tell he was nervous and excited.
But he bricked
and,
like 4 shots in a row.
Yeah,
while he was on
yeah,
the court.
totally.
And then he dominated after.
Yeah. Okay, we have a little game here on the show we like to call bench start cut. We won't make it too hard for you. It's the PG version of probably the game that you we can't say on this. Okay, bench start cut. A Lakers title, Dodgers winning the World Series, USC women's basketball winning the title. This is tough.
tough.
This is tough. We went in on the hometown.
Since I mean, right now, since the Dodgers are literally about to start the World Series tonight, I gotta go with my Dodgers since it's right in front of me, and this is an iconic matchup, not seen since I was a teenager growing up in LA, '81, and Fernando just passing. Fernando mania. I gotta just put my Dodgers at whatever the
Start.
the
You're gonna
start
start 'em.
is.
Start him.
So the Lakers season has started. So then I go Lakers 2, then USC 3
Okay.
on this.
All right.
Fair. The Trojans play the Huskies women in December in Connecticut.
Okay.
So if you're not busy,
Well, it'll be after the election. So
That's true. You
hopefully
You won't be busy. You'll be-
yeah,
I'll roll
you'll
up
probably be
there
free.
Yeah.
during our transition into the Kamala
Exactly.
Harris
Yeah.
administration.
I
So
would love that.
I'll roll up from DC and you can host me.
Yeah.
That would be amazing.
Absolutely.
I would love that. We make our own ice cream up there. I don't know if you've heard. It's a big hit.
That's about all that's up there.
We're considering this a formal invitation. Great.
Yes,
Absolutely.
Yes. I'll have something drawn up to make it
Okay,
real.
good.
Send you an invite.
Second Gentleman Doug Emhoff, thank you so much for joining us. Always a pleasure. We wish the administration you luck and some calm vibes during these last 10 days leading up to the election. Thank you so much for joining us. Please tell your wife we said hi. We're
Thank
with
you
her.
both. It's so great to see you, and I'll see you out there real time soon. Take care.
All righty.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Doug.
Bye bye.
Fox Creative.
This is advertiser content from L'Oreal Paris.
One thing is for people to just have a little bit more grace and understand that these are people with complex problems and complex stories.
For someone experiencing homelessness, access to hygiene products and services isn't a luxury. It's a necessity.
My name is Brianna Daniel. I am the founder and chairwoman of Street Team Movement, Inc., and we are based in Orlando, Florida. Street Team Movements is a program that utilizes vending machines that provides hygiene to the unhoused at no cost to them.
Each year, L'Oreal Paris launches a nationwide search for 10 extraordinary nonprofit leaders to be named Women of Worth. Each honoree receives $25,000 to support their charitable cause, mentorship from the L'Oreal Paris Network, and a national platform to amplify their stories and their work, and to remind women that they can be the ones to define their own worth.
The L'Oreal Paris Women of Worth program, it really helped us establish our feminine hygiene program for unhoused women. We have now feminine hygiene kits that would take a homeless woman through 5 days of her cycle.
L'Oreal Paris recognizes the importance and the dignity attached to hygiene, even something as seemingly simple as access to deodorant or tampons.
Everyone deserves a shower. Everyone deserves hygiene. Everyone deserves to feel like they're worth the bar of soap and toothpaste and a toothbrush and dignity. Why? Because you are worthy of this.
Learn more about Brianna Daniel, Street Team Movement, and this year's recipients at womenofworth.com.
Doug Emhoff, Second Gentleman of the United States, everybody. We really enjoyed this conversation and have really loved watching him step into this role that literally no one else has ever done before, and been like, it's hard and it's struggle. He had a very big, successful career himself, and just hearing him say, like, yeah, I struggle with it, but it became really obvious. Like, I mean, my wife is the Vice President of the United States. Like, what are we even talking about? But just his openness in that, his willingness to talk about, you know, the intersection of women and politics and women's sports, whether it's reproductive rights or abortion rights or, you know, just his interaction with that, their blended family, like how he's just showing up and supporting her. Like it should be a no-brainer. And I think for a lot of men, they feel this way also, but it's not an image we see portrayed a lot, and certainly not in politics because we have, well, she's the only one that's been in that position. We've never had a female president, obviously. I am voting for Kamala, and I do hope that she wins, so we can say that. And there's just so few women in those high-level government positions. So to see this, like, picture of it and this, like, depiction of it, I think is really powerful. So I really enjoyed the conversation.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. And, you know, this episode for us is the last episode that'll come out before November 5th, so before Election Day. And we've spent a lot of time talking about on the show. Obviously, having the second gentleman here was a big part of that. For me, I think back to what Stacey Abrams talked about around DEI and about how that's about the equality of opportunity. And I love that the second gentleman has dedicated so much of his time tackling gender equities. You know, I touched on this in the interview. He actually was quoted. I knew there was like some article I had read, and that's why I asked him about it, where he actually says women's sports is a very public encapsulation of what's happening to every woman in every industry. And we've seen that, you know, as athletes. We've seen, or we've had different women come up to us thanking us, right? So for me, I know one of the big things is maternity leave. Yeah. When we did our CBA, we had 100% maternity leave. So many women from other industries were like, oh, like I'm going to learn from that. From you, it's obviously pay equity.
Yep.
Or the equal pay fight. So we've seen how athletes have been able to be that voice, that, you know, we have the microphone in front of us and we've been able to use it. And the one thing we do know is that women do show up. They show up for themselves. They show up for their communities. And I expect that for this election as well, which is why I loved what Michelle Obama had to say when she spoke to men. And we're going to take a listen.
If we don't get this election right, your wife, your daughter, your mother, we as women will become collateral damage to your rage. So are you as men prepared to look into the eyes of the women and children you love and tell them that you supported this assault on our safety? And to the women listening, we have every right to demand that the men in our lives do better by us.
I mean, strong. Because it's true, we do need men to show up. Yes, for women, but this is also for themselves. And, you know, I think as a quick reminder, as it specifically relates to the issue of abortion, this does impact us all. And I saw Charlotte Alter, who's a senior correspondent at Time, also sister to our dear friend Tommy. She did a little thread on Twitter, and I just want to hit some of the points that she made. It's kind of as my little mic drop moment, I guess. But yeah, she was talking about the abortion debate. And she said how it's now about healthcare for complications during wanted pregnancies. A lot of people think abortion, they think unwanted. It's now about wanted pregnancies. And she goes on to say how this makes it relevant to any woman who might become pregnant, but also any man who might want to be a dad. She goes on to add, quote, pregnancy complications, no politics. And for me, there's literally nothing else to say.
It also makes me think of another thing you brought up, Stacey Abrams, what she was saying, and this is attempting, I'm not going to do it as good as Stacey.
Trying to connect some dots?
I'm trying to connect some dots around the trans kids in sports and just the assault on trans rights. is, and AJ Hicks, who is the deputy executive director of the ACLU, we were just on a little panel with them the other night, was saying that the assault on trans people is an effort through the courts to say that the government has the right to tell you what to do with your body and with your health care. Obviously, for trans people, whether that's denying health care or excluding kids from sport or trying to exclude them, solely. And I feel like this makes me think of the abortion because it's not just someone was irresponsible and someone got pregnant and now you have to deal with your consequences. It's wanted pregnancies. It's ectopic pregnancies. Mm-hmm. It's all the myriad of complications that are possible when people get pregnant and when families get pregnant. And I loved what Michelle said. For men, are you prepared to watch your partner die in a hospital bed because it's against the law for a doctor to help them? That is what it really is coming down. And I don't believe that most people would want that. Mm-hmm. I don't believe most men would want that. I know that most women don't want that. Just the basic human right of having autonomy over your own body. I think everybody can agree with that. So I love that. Hopefully those dots got connected. But I think
it's really important to stress that that's what you're voting on.
That's what you're voting on.
Because I think there's somebody in our life that we recently had a conversation, mm-hmm. and he was saying how he's pro-life, but he's like, no, of course, if there's a complication, of course, but that's not what you're voting on.
That's not what you're voting on.
That's not what's being voted on,
right?
And so I feel like it's so important to remind people of that.
Also, pro-choice, just as a reminder, protects your right to not have an abortion, or your partner's right to not have one. It just protects everybody to do what they want with their own bodies. I think there's also just something worth noting. I think it's always worth noting and calling out hate and bigotry and bullying. I thought Greg Popovich, actually, mm-hmm. NBA's senior bullshit caller outer, his deputy is Steve Kerr, and so many others in the NBA have spoken out. But I actually really liked what Greg Popovich had to say about Donald Trump. He goes on basically just to say, you wouldn't want this guy babysitting your child or working in your small business. He's small. He's mean. He makes fun of people. We're talking on, October 28th, there was a rally at Madison Square Garden where the comedic act, the opening act, just openly racist, openly bigoted, openly xenophobic, saying the most horrible things. You would never allow your kids to say those kinds of things. Mm-hmm. We would never want our kids to walk into school and be subjected to that or subject someone else to that. There is a level of decency here that I think is being lost in the divisiveness of right, left, and this, that, and the other. I think that's important. I think we also have a really amazing opportunity to elect a Black woman in this country. And for me, that is really important. I saw an amazing thing on Instagram the other day of this Black woman after she voted in Georgia, talking about how her dad, had fled the Ku Klux Klan and was running from them. And now she has the opportunity to vote for this Black woman for the first time ever in her life. Change is possible. We don't have to live like this. And for everyone, I would encourage you to vote, make a plan, iwillvote.com. Make sure you're registered. Make sure that you have a plan on voting day. Know where your poll site is. All of that. It is stressful. I am nervous. But I also am hopeful. And I believe in people. And I certainly believe in women. And I believe that people want better than the grim, dark, just violent reality that Donald Trump has very clearly laid out for us. He's telling everybody what he's going to do, and it's really dark and it's really sad, and I don't think anybody wants to live like that. That's really all I got to say about it. All right, everybody. Like I said, get your voting plan, find your people, take care of each other. This is going to be a wild week, no matter what, leading into the election, so take some deep breaths, find your people, and make your voting plan. Go team.
All right. Next up, we have an Are You a Megan or Are You a Sue this week.
Yeah, we're gonna lighten the mood a little bit.
We were recently in Mexico on a little vacation.
It was so nice.
And very quickly we realized something that we've talked about before. But then, now I feel like we go through our lives being like, is this a good bicker? Should we bring this to the pod? Is this a Megan or you Sue? And so we realized this is a good one we can bring. So we need to know, everyone, are you a Megan, which means you're a corn tortilla person, or are you a Sue, which means you're flour? Corn or flour, go. You have 30 seconds to tell me why corn's better.
It's just better. It's the original form of a taco. It tastes better. It actually has flavor. You always say that it falls apart, and I'm like, not if they're made correctly. Yes, I agree. If you get a budget corn one, it's not great.
8 Mile me? Did you just take what I'm going to say?
Sorry, I'm talented.
I am a bum. I do live in a trailer with my mom. I'm
My
talented.
corn tortillas do fall apart.
Yeah.
I just think they're a lot better. I think it's...
Time's up.
Well, it's
Literally.
the clock keeping for me.
We need a clock for you.
Yeah.
I'm joking.
I know, I do ramble.
No, you don't. You don't.
Okay,
Sometimes.
30 seconds, you're on the clock. Go.
Well, you already said it, but corn's just worse. It's an inferior product. It does fall apart. That's why when you go to street taco places, they give you 2 because they know the first one's going to fall apart.
That's part of it.
Okay. Flour does not dominate the dish, if you will, whereas corn, it's all you taste is the
adds
corn.
nothing.
Oh, but it's yummy, and you like it because the other day or the last day you requested it.
Okay, I do like
By the way, and
sometimes,
it's so
especially with
much
shrimp.
better. I'll say this: it's better for breakfast tacos. You can't change my mind on that. Corn is with breakfast tacos. I can mess around with the street taco vibe, really any other taco. I do like corn, obviously in chip form, but flour's just it's just
Not as
better.
good. I agree. Not as good.
You said you agree?
You said flour's just, I said not as good. I agree.
Oh,
Gotcha.
there you have it, folks. Are you a Megan or are you a Sue?
All right, everybody. You know the deal. Dial in, leave us a message, DM us, put it in the comments. 1833, a touch 8. Tell us, are you a Megan, corn, or are you a Sue, flour? Blech. Last but not least, a touch more.
Just a touch more, a little bit.
Just a touch more.
Yeah.
This week, we have some early favorites for what is such a joyful and delightful time of the
I'm
year.
actually going to do a quick
for
check
Megan
to see
and
if there's
Sue.
more.
It's when people dress up as us. It's so funny.
So funny.
It's so creative. People really get in there. This one that we have this week is like a proper doppelganger. People were like, I was double taking. It was pretty good. The first one we're going to get to is a CarMax remake. Take a look.
I mean, dead.
Okay, I think this is so funny. I have seen this commercial probably 1,000 times.
Who hasn't?
It's funny every time. I find something new. I think it's so funny that you're the shortest one by a number of inches in that car, and you're the one that's saying that your legs are numb. So this all being just right here on this person is so funny.
I know. We actually had an appearance the other day, the two of us.
We did.
And 2 young women came up, took a picture with us. And it took me a second, but they were like, so we just want to say thank you. You reposted one of our TikToks. And I looked at them. I was like, oh, you're the 2 that remade the CarMax commercial.
Yeah. It's funny.
So it was fun to meet them
In real life.
IRL. But yeah, that costume was legit. But apparently not as good as this next one.
I don't think it's as good.
Let the
This-
people decide.
This is like, I did a double take on whether this was me or not, and you or not. After closer inspection, it's not us.
Okay.
It's a
Well, you did
Halloween
have a
costume.
favorite part. What was your favorite part?
My favorite part was the dog in place of the posters. People don't know how popular and hard to come by those posters are.
Oh my God.
People were leaving them, and I was like, I am not leaving them. Dawn was happy I didn't leave them. Dawn collects
Yeah.
posters too. You collect the Olympic
Oh,
posters.
I have so many
They're hard
stories
to come
about
by.
Dawn and I collecting those
I would have
posters.
traded every poster for that dog. You know I want a dog. Like, I don't really, but like,
What a 180. You would give
Anyways.
up the posters for a dog?
To the pick. I mean, pretty good, down to all the accessories.
Tag us at A Touch More, and we will share our favorite costumes on Instagram. Okay, so in honor of Halloween, we're going to talk about something scary that we're watching. It's really scary for Megan, but we just started watching Monster, which is the Lyle and Eric Menendez story.
Spoiler alert, it's scary.
It's not scary.
It gave me an immediate nightmare.
I know, that's
It
so
gave me a
interesting.
nightmare that night.
Did you not know the story already? Like for me,
I
I
did.
feel like I'm just rewatching what I already knew.
I did, but the visuals are scary, and I don't need anything
Yeah, the
disturbing
hole in the
like
dad's
that.
face was a lot. That was a lot.
Not even that. It's just the whole thing. It's just it got right into my dream. I'm not even like a super.
You were kind of
vivid,
young when it was happening. I would
Yeah.
be surprised if you don't remember.
I'm not even super vivid dreamer like that. All of a sudden, that's happening in my dreams, and I said, absolutely. There's a reason I do not watch scary movies. I don't watch horror movies. Psychological thriller is the furthest I'll go, and even that sometimes is.
What does that mean?
Sounds of lambs.
Oh,
What do you mean?
fava beans.
Clarice.
I was like, what are you doing?
basket.
This isn't shown. Well, we've actually only gotten to episode 2, and now Megan, I'll have to watch it on my own.
Yeah.
Which is great timing because you're leaving town.
Perfect.
I steamrolled through this in 5 seconds. But I did do a quick search because I do remember this trial. I do remember, all the happenings. But I don't know. I was curious. Well, first of all, the actors kept like messing me up, meaning I initially like visually connected like Eric with one of the actors and Lyle with another. And so my head was all over the place.
Yeah.
So I just did a quick Google and I was reading a little bit about it. And I came across a very interesting, I don't know if it's fun, but I think it's fun, like a fun fact.
It's very funny.
Part of the Menendez brothers' story is that, their parents are murdered. They're not suspects at first. They inherit all this money. There's all tons of details. Watch the show and find out. There's all these details, but they go on this elaborate shopping spree. I think they buy like a car, they buy some apartments, like $700,000 worth. And one of the things they spend on is a trip to New York where they buy, I'm assuming, courtside seats to watch a Knicks game. Here's the fun fact. When Mark Jackson, who was a member of the Knicks at the time, when Mark Jackson's playing card came out later that year, Lyle and Eric are sitting courtside in the background of the card.
You can't even
I
make it
couldn't.
up.
It was like, now that I didn't remember. I'm like really
No.
disappointed in myself that I didn't.
Do you think there was someone at the card company that did that on purpose?
I don't
We
know.
need Pablo to deep dive it.
Pablo?
Pablo?
Find out.
Calling all Pablos?
Find out. Let us know.
Do a deep dive.
So finally, as Megan has already said, it is time to vote. We checked the mail. Our ballots are here. They have come from Washington, and we are headed home pretty much right after this.
Yeah.
To make sure we get our votes in. So that's it. That's it for our episode. We'll see you next week. Thanks to L'Oreal Paris for their support. Over the last few months, we've gotten to share stories from L'Oreal Paris Women of Worth honorees. Every single brilliant woman we've spoken to has said the same thing. Every single human being is worthy. Full stop. And yet, way too often, the worth and dignity of unhoused folks is fully disregarded. Sometimes it's simply because of the state of their hygiene. Brianna Daniel, founder of Street Team Movement and Women of Worth alum, is on a mission to provide free hygiene products and services to unhoused people. She told us that the worth of a person doesn't depend on their hygiene, but that those little steps are a great way to remind someone of their worth, that they are worthy of kindness, care, and basic needs. Because I'm worth it applies to everyone. Sometimes we just need a little reminder in order to believe it. Learn more at l'orealparis.com.